Are you craving a trip on Space Mountain? Well, we've got the next best thing. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and welcome to the House of Mouse headlines brought to you by laughingplace.com, your up-to-date resource for the latest Disney news every day of the week. This episode is being released on June 2nd, 2021, but full disclosure, it's being recorded approximately a week early as I'll be vacationing at the last Blockbuster when I would typically record this episode. So any recent news that isn't part of this episode will be discussed in the next House of Mouse headlines. For now, here's what's been going on in the world of Disney recently. The Disneyland Resort is moving a bit closer to normalcy, more from the Muppets, an exciting Hocus Pocus confirmation, and more. It's all coming your way right after this. 3 words: Who's-its and What's-its. 4-letter discount code: DCTC. Save 15% off of Disney-inspired merchandise from Who's-its and What's-its by clicking the link in this episode's description and using code DCTC at checkout. It's that simple.
Hear the latest news from the Walt Disney Company in today's House of Mouse headlines.
Ahead of Disneyland Paris' reopening on June 17th, the World of Disney store at Disney Village has once again been open on weekends. As of May 22nd, the retail location has been open on Saturdays and Sundays from noon to 5 p.m. and will continue these hours through June 13th. Then, on June 17th, Park Disneyland, Walt Disney Studios Park, Disney Village, and Disney's Newport Bay Club Hotel will reopen to guests, followed by the grand opening of the new Hotel New York, The Art of Marvel, on June 21st. Following the news that the popular Disney College program would be returning to the Walt Disney World Resort after a more than year-long hiatus, applications for the next program are now open to new participants. As previously announced, the rules for the program have been adjusted slightly to allow those who may have otherwise missed their opportunity during the temporary discontinuation. Now, students currently enrolled and taking classes at an accredited program or institution and have completed at least one semester or have graduated within 24 months of the application posting date are eligible. Notably, those selected will be among the first to stay in the brand new Flamingo Crossings Village housing community. Those interested in applying can find more info on the Disney College Program website. At the beginning of this year, Walt Disney World ended the practice of providing resort hotel guests with free magic bands. Now this policy is expanding to annual pass holders, as those who renew or purchase passes after August 16th will no longer receive a complimentary magic band. This move comes as the resort has been rolling out its Disney Magic Mobile functionality that allows guests to essentially use their smartphone as a magic band. Of course, those who still want to purchase, use, and collect magic bands can find them for sale throughout the resort and on Shop Disney. After some time away, the 3 Caballeros audio animatronics have returned to Epcot. Donald, Jose, and Panchito are all once again functioning at the finale of the Grand Fiesta Tour after getting some love from Imagineers. As you may recall, the figures joined the ride a few years back and were actually once used in the Mickey Mouse Revue show. Be sure to greet these birds of a feather on your next visit to Walt Disney World. Your Disney selfies just got a little more magical thanks to new lenses from Disney PhotoPass and Snapchat. For a limited time, guests both at Walt Disney World and at home can enjoy Disney Parks-inspired augmented reality experiences. Special Mickey and Minnie lenses will soon only be available in the Snapchat app when guests are at Walt Disney World, but they're currently available to everyone in the US to try for a bit longer, although they are set to expire on June 3rd. That said, Disney and Snap say that these specialty lenses are just the first of other special experiences to come, so stay tuned. As the Disneyland Resort continues its phased reopening, it's now been announced that the Disneyland Hotel will reopen on July 2nd with limited capacity. With the hotel's reopening comes the return of the immensely popular Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar. Tangaroa Terrace Tropical Bar and Grill, as well as the Coffee House, will reopen on that date as well. Reservation for Disneyland Hotel stays are now open at Disneyland.com. While Disneyland's annual pass holder program has come to an end, the resort has continued to roll out small offerings for those who were pass holders before the parks closed in March of last year. The latest example of this are new complimentary limited edition Legacy Pass holder magnets. These magnets can be picked up at select retail locations inside Disneyland Park and Disney California Adventure, but are also available at the Disney Dress Shop, Star Wars Trading Post, Wonderground Gallery, and World of Disney at Downtown Disney while supplies last. While we already knew that a Hocus Pocus sequel was in the works, Disney has revealed some very exciting details. Most importantly, it has now been confirmed that the original Sanderson sisters, Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy, will be reprising their roles. Additionally, as we mentioned in the last installment of the House of Mouse headlines, Anne Fletcher will now direct the film, while previously announced Helmer Adam Schenkman will serve as executive producer. The highly anticipated Hocus Pocus 2 will debut exclusively on Disney Plus in fall 2022. And now it's time to bring in Kyle Burbank from laughingplace.com to talk about some of the latest Disney news. Hello, Kyle.
Hey, Jeff.
How are you, sir?
I am very good.
I like that. Very good is better than good. And today we have some Disney news we got some big Disney news and some little bit Disney news, but it's all worth talking about. Disneyland Resort ending the temperature screenings after the update from the California health officials. Disneyland Resort has updated their website to announce that on-site temperature screenings for both cast members and guests will end as of June 15th, 2021. We're heading back to normal, Kyle.
I'm a little surprised it's taking that long, just because I think for a few weeks at least, and depends on who you ask, longer, those have kind of been more theater than effective. But yeah, I think it makes sense that those are phasing out. I mean, especially because by June 15th, the mask mandate could also look a lot different.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, June 15th is kind of that magic date for Southern California or California in general. So it'll be interesting to see, what Disney decides to adhere to and not. And, just because they don't have to do it doesn't mean that they won't do it for a while still. So it'll be interesting to see. The thing that I just keep thinking is, if crowds get larger, which I don't know if you've been seeing on social media, but there's been a lot of complaining about long waits in the parks and lots of crowding and stuff at Disneyland Resort. Have you seen this?
I don't spend much time on Twitter anymore, but I know that they are, Chapek was just talking about today how they're able to slowly be cranking up capacity. So as they can do that, they're going to get as many people as want to go and that they're allowed to let in as they can. So, I mean, it's going to get back to the Disneyland we all know, for better or worse in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I would have to say about that is, great, if you want to let in, 100% capacity or whatever it may be, you need to bring back the live shows, because that's the issue. There's nothing sucking up large crowds of people like parades and shows and stuff like that. We just saw over at Universal Studios Hollywood, the Waterworld stunt show just recently came back, which is great because, I mean, they were having crazy line issues at Universal here in Hollywood, and I think we're just going to keep seeing this issue at Disneyland if they don't do something to suck up some crowds. So hopefully that means live entertainment back soon, but I'm not holding my breath for that one.
Yeah, I think everything's, moving quickly. But yeah, to remember, they've only been open since April 30th. So at this point, it's been, a little over a month, and things have changed dramatically in that time. And so I'm sure, recalling the regular cast members was one thing, recalling actors' equity, I'm sure, is another. So hopefully those are in the works, although I would suspect we would have seen some word leak about that if they were. But hopefully, if they haven't already, it starts happening.
Yeah, it is interesting. Things are moving very quickly here. Unlike, Walt Disney World, where we saw a couple of months of, no crowds. Here at Disneyland, it was 1 week of that. And then it started getting very busy again. So, things are moving quickly. We waited a long time to reopen down here, so it makes sense that it would move faster. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens. But I think, the more you open, the more entertainment you need, because people standing in queues all day is not a great guest experience. And, we've got some guest experience things to talk about, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But let's move on to a video that came out of the Muppets sharing a message about getting vaccinated. We had Gonzo and Pepe back, the folks who announced Go ahead, say it, Kyle. I'm setting you up.
Muppet Haunted Mansion.
Nice. Okay, so the characters that set that up for us, they made a video to tell us that they received their vaccines and shared a video message informing others to learn more about the vaccines at getvaccineanswers.org. This video message will be airing on ABC, ABC affiliates, and social channels to encourage others to, quote unquote, give it a shot. Ha ha, but
They said they barely felt a thing.
That is funny. I actually hadn't caught that. But yeah, so this is kind of interesting. I mean, people have made vaccines a political thing. So it's kind of interesting that like the Muppets and Disney are taking a stand on this. But I think, equally as interesting is the fact that the Muppets we're getting some more Muppet love. And that's just a good thing.
I know. I was expecting to see like the same set. Maybe it was all in front of a green screen.
It probably
I think
was.
It's definitely interesting, and that's why I shared it with you, is because little mini Muppet Renaissance, sort of. I mean, it's just very random projects for them, but it's always nice to see them pop up in places, and getting a campaign, I think, fits. Because it's unclear whether this is, I mean, it's mostly geared towards adults, but, if a kid likes it, they might tell their parents, be like, hey, the blue guy said to get your vaccine, so maybe. And we're seeing vaccines also roll out to younger. I don't know how it works as far as getting permission, but I think 12 to
15, I think, is now available, yeah.
Yeah, for the Pfizer one, so.
Yeah, it's we still have those billboards all over SoCal of like the Incredibles giving us safety measures and stuff, and I'm like, gosh, that is, I mean, we're going to look back at this time and see photos of this and be like, oh, how weird. Like, that's a weird thing if you really think about it. Like, Disney billboards that would typically be advertising rides or advertising safety due to a pandemic. It's bizarre. And even a year
like, wait, we had to be told how to wash our hands for a month and a half?
Not how to, just to do it. Because a lot of people...
there were directions.
Yeah.
You have to remember all the songs that we were told to sing.
That's right. Another reason I wanted to mention this is because I saw something on Twitter. Somebody tweeted this, and clearly it was obviously a joke. I wish I took a screenshot of who tweeted it. I did not, so I apologize. Somebody deserves credit for this. But they said what they should do, if Disney really wants people to get vaccines, they should give free vaccines in Disney parking lots as you show up to the park with the incentive of a $20 Disney gift card. And then, on the way into the park, sell t-shirts at the park entrance for $25 that say, I got vaccinated at Walt Disney World. That's genius. Whoever tweeted that, that's like, yes, that's a joke, but also should be done. Like, that's genius.
I guess they have short enough hours that maybe hopefully the symptoms wouldn't hit you during your Disney day. But actually, there's, I don't know all the details, but I saw on the news that they were we have a farm team here that they're the Springfield Cardinals, or the AA for the St. Louis Cardinals, and they were doing a thing where they were going to have on-site vaccines and give people vaccines and give them a free ticket to the baseball game. So it's not unprecedented.
Let's move on to some Cruella news. Of course, we're all getting excited for Cruella to hit theaters and Disney+, but we did get the news that Disney Plus subscribers will be able to watch Cruella not only as part of Premier Access on May 28th, but it will be available to all subscribers on August 27th. Now, this is interesting to me because obviously they've done this over and over again where they're saying, yeah, it'll be free to everybody on whatever date. We were talking last time in the House of Mouse headlines about like strategies as far as releases and stuff and testing things. Why do they announce this? I find this very strange. Doesn't this just dissuade people from paying Premier Access?
Well, here's the thing. They announce it in that if you dive into the frequently asked questions page, like I did to find this piece of information, then it's there. But I don't really see it being promoted anywhere by Disney, so that's part of it. And this also follows the same pattern. It's actually been 3 months for Mulan and for Raya. So, I mean, we probably could guess that this is when the date was, but it's always, nice to wait and make sure. But the thing for me just makes me wonder, with the 45-day window for Shang-Chi and for Free Guy, do you think that the 90 days starts at the end of the 45, or do you think it starts before the day it hits theaters? Do you think 90 days? My guess would probably be 45, then digital, and then maybe 90 until it's free on Disney Plus. But
Yeah, I don't know, but I just find it so weird. I don't think there's any legal obligation to make that announcement. I just feel like maybe it's to like be like, oh, you're going to have to wait 3 months. Maybe you want to pay for it. But like to me, I'm like, it's just 3 months. Unless it's a movie you're dying for.
Yeah, but if you think, 3 months doesn't seem long, but if that's what the traditional theatrical window was, and like we were saying, that never stopped anyone from going to the theater in the first place. So if the kid wants to see Cruella on day one and doing the premiere access is still cheaper than taking them to the theater, then, maybe
Yeah, but also I feel like maybe, that'd be like if a movie opened in the theater and they then tell you what day it's going to be available to buy on Blu-ray. Like that never...
Yeah, but again, you could do that math.
You could, but that's not a guarantee. I don't know. Just giving a very specific date, I find like is a bit weird. They've been doing it for a while. I'm sure their spreadsheets show that it doesn't matter, and perhaps it even helps. I don't know. But I just find it to be a very, very strange strategy. But let's get to the meat, the juicy news. Web Slingers, a Spider-Man adventure. Because, of course, Avengers Campus is opening. Now, for Webslingers, the main attraction, starting on June 4th, guests wishing to ride Webslingers, a Spider-Man adventure, will need to join a virtual queue via the Disneyland mobile app and obtain a boarding pass. Oh, this is sounding familiar. Boarding pass distribution will occur twice daily, once at 7 a.m. and again at 12 p.m., once again familiar. The 7 a.m. release will be available to guests with valid ticket and theme park reservations who are starting their day in Disney California Adventure. Boarding passes for this release can be claimed from anywhere as long as the guest's park ticket is properly linked. Meanwhile, the noon virtual queue release will only be available to those who have entered either Disney California Adventure or Disneyland Park and have a park hopper ticket by noon. So, yeah, I'm kind of sick of this strategy.
It's kind of necessary. I honestly don't have any experience with virtual queues yet, having not been to the parks since they've been a thing. But what's interesting here is kind of like the Fast Pass rules is you can't have a virtual queue reservation for both Rise and for Web Slingers. You can if they're doing the Indiana Jones. They're testing that virtual queue. You'll be able to have Indiana Jones and one of the other two, but not the two big boys.
Yeah, so that is ridiculous. It's as if they don't want to sell park hopper tickets. Like, that's absurd to me. That their two biggest attractions, one in each park, they're saying, hey, pay for a full price ticket and maybe you'll get a shot at it. I'm sorry, but this is now the norm. And this is so frustrating because no longer are the days of, you know what, I will pay my full price ticket. And if I have to wait 4 hours in the line, I will do it because this is my priority. This is like gut wrenching. Let's face it, a lot of locals are going to do the new things. This is ridiculous to me. The one thing I don't know the answer to that I got to figure out is, say I have a ticket for the day, I try the 7 a.m., I don't get a boarding group. At that point, can I reschedule my ticket for a different day? Because I'll tell you what, like, I wouldn't want to pay full price and not get a boarding group.
Someone else on our team was saying pretty much the same thing, like, especially for annual pass holders who can't just go whenever anymore. They have to pay for a full day's ticket.
Yeah, it's not cool.
If that happens, poor City Hall.
Listen, I understand. First of all, I do understand the people who, like, quote unquote, prefer it. It's very nice. When you get a boarding group, it's great. And knock on wood, I've been very lucky. I've always gotten boarding groups for the stuff I've wanted. But I know plenty of people who haven't. And, if I paid a full price ticket to get into the park and didn't get it, I would be extremely unhappy. And, the excuse of, oh, well, you can try again at noon. I'm like, that's not a good reason. Like, that's not good enough because if I enter the park and try again and don't get it, at that point, you're not going to give me anything because I'm not going to be able to reschedule my day or anything because I've already spent the morning there. So I really am curious if you're going to be able to reschedule your day. If so, I'll have less issue with it. So I got to look into that. But I don't know. I don't like this. I don't like that this is now the norm. I don't like that you can't have both boarding passes. Like, they're two different parks. And Frank, I have so many issues with this. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, you bring up good points that I wouldn't have thought of because I'm not in the same situation anymore. And like I said, don't have experience booking these things. My only hope is that Web Slingers, being presumably a shorter attraction and hopefully one that's a little bit more reliable will have more availability. So at least maybe if you even start your day in DCA, maybe it's possible that you can get through and then be done with your boarding group before that noon comes up for Rise. I mean, I guess that's a possibility for a small number of people.
Yeah, I think that, like, at least myself, I think I was a bit more understanding for Rise of the Resistance, because Rise of the Resistance is really a one-of-a-kind attraction. The length of it, it's an in-depth attraction. So I think it was like, all right, this is necessary to get this experience. From what we know, Spider-Man, although maybe extremely cool, like, it's not 15 minutes long or anything. So the fact that this is just becoming the norm for anything new is really frustrating. And having said that, like, if you look over at Universal Studios or Islands of Adventure, they just opened Velocicoaster. They're not dealing with this thing. And from what I understand, that's going fine. So, like, the rule of because it's new and popular, we need a virtual queue, I think is a crap rule.
It sounds like they're going to stick around for the virtual queue system. I mean, hopefully they figure out a way to perfect it, because the idea of having a virtual queue and not having to wait in line sounds great, but obviously there's issues with the execution. So,
I mean, it sounds great. I mean, people can say, well, listen, if you wait in line for a ride, that doesn't guarantee admission to it. Like, the ride could break down or whatever. Yes, 100%, but at least, like, you're given that choice of, I will wait 4 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours if I need to. Like, you are making that decision, and you can say, well, that's not a good guest experience because they're in line all day. No, if that's what that guest is choosing to do, that is a good experience for them. Now, let's face it, the bad thing is they're not buying food and merch, and that's really the problem. The virtual queue is to keep people in the park spending money more than it is to keep you out of line for comfort. Let's get serious. And I don't know. I'm so frustrated by this thing, and I don't know. Like, honestly, if I can't reschedule my day, if I don't get a boarding pass, I don't know when the heck I will pay to do it, because I'm not going to take that chance. Just not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting once for any one of these attractions, it's always been, virtual queue only. So once they have it treat virtual queue more like a fast pass, and then also have standby available, I think that'll be more interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, and at that point, they're going to be selling the virtual queue, is my guess. It'll become more like a Max Pass situation. But, like, frankly, that's the thing. There needs to be a standby option. This no option for standby is crazy to me. But let's talk about a second about some special merchandise that came out, the Web Power Band. And this will customize the ride experience you have on the new attraction, Webslingers, a Spider-Man adventure. This new item features an attraction mode that unlocks multi-fire webs when on Webslingers, a Spider-Man adventure, giving guests a new way to experience the attraction. Very cool. Love this idea. I know a lot of people had issue with this. I don't understand why. It's not a requirement to ride the ride. I maybe if you're an extremely competitive person, this might bother you, because my guess is it's a lot easier to win against whoever you're riding with. I assume this is like a point system and somebody wins. That's an assumption I'm making. So, if I really never care at all about my score in these rides. I'm just on it to have fun. But if you do care about the score, maybe that'll be frustrating to you. Otherwise, I think it's really genius. The one thing that would be more genius than just that is if when you bought this, you got a boarding group. That would sell out every single item on the shelf every single day. And that I would have an issue with, because that would be really, really tacky.
There you go. Yeah, the tacky part. I thought you were endorsing paid fast passes, which seems to be such like a deal breaker for everyone for all this time. And then you're just like, hey, they should do that. I think this is an interesting thing. I like that there's a few different options. So it sounds like there's the Spider-Man and then the Ghost Spider, which will have one type of mechanism and feel, whereas there's a Rescue and an Iron Man. Those would be more like the repulsors. So in addition to having a different game experience on the screen, I presume, there's also, it sounds like there's going to be a physical difference in what you'll feel while you're playing the game. That's just my reading of it. You know how Disney speak is.
It sounds really like a good idea to me. There are a lot of people on social media who seem to have an issue with this. And listen, I mean, yeah, are they trying to encourage people to buy things? Yes, but it's not a requirement. So it's kind of like, people didn't have issue when those glow with the show ears came out, and they're like, to enhance your Phantasmic and World of Color experience, get your glow with the show ears. Number one, the irony of that was like, it actually didn't enhance your experience at all. It enhanced the person behind you. But to me, it's the same thing. It's an option. It's cool. If it were something Jurassic related, I'd probably be into buying it. I'm not a huge Marvel fan, so I probably never will, but I think it's a cool plus, honestly.
I don't have any problem with it. I don't understand the pithiness around it. I mean, you can spin it certain different ways if you want, but at the end of the day, it's just a product that you don't have to buy.
So it's kind of cool. So, listen, we're getting ready for the ride. It's going to be opening really soon. Some people will get to ride it, others will not. And some people will buy the toy that goes along with it, and others will not. And at the very least, it's going to make for a repeatable experience. I am most interested in this attraction just because, as I've said before, I think the Spider-Man attraction at Islands of Adventure is one of the greatest attractions ever made. So I'm really curious to see what Disney does with this character. So it'll be interesting.
Well, I'm most excited for this attraction because I get to hear you say it a bunch more times. So.
Oh, because you like the way I say Webslingers, a Spider-Man adventure.
Yeah, I think we need to bring back the In a World trailers.
Well, do you remember the back in the day when we were talking about the brand new Guardians of the Galaxy mission Breakout, and I'd have to scream Breakout every time.
There is an exclamation point. You have to. I always say
exclamation with all caps.
Little Mermaid tilde. Ariel's understand.
What do you say? Little Mermaid what?
There's a tilde, so you have to pronounce the tilde.
I'm not that extreme, but yeah, no. Webslingers, a Spider-Man adventure. Let's hear your go at it.
Webslingers, a Spider-Man adventure.
I love it. Everybody listening is their earbuds are dancing with joy right now from that. And I think we'll leave it at that, Kyle. Thanks a bunch for coming on and talking about some of the latest news. I'll talk to you again in a couple weeks.
All right. See you then.
To read more about any and all of the stories you've heard here today, simply visit the show notes at DisneyCoastToCoast.com or find the link to the show notes in this episode's description. You've heard the news, and now I want to hear what you have to say about it. Call 818-860-2569, leave a voicemail sharing your thoughts, and you may just hear yourself on a future episode of Disney Coast to Coast. How do you feel about the latest Spider-Man web-slinger news? Or how do you feel about Hocus Pocus 2 going to Disney Plus and not movie theaters? Share your thoughts about any stories mentioned today by calling 818-860-2569 or simply look in this episode's description for the phone number, along with a link for some free gifts from me to you. On last week's episode, we celebrated the new Disney movie Cruella by having a deep dive discussion about the evolution of iconic villain Cruella de Vil, from book to animation to live action and prequel. And next week, we'll be discussing some favorite attractions that don't just retell the movie's story, but instead continues the story. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. As always, thank you to those of you who support the show on Patreon. You make all of this possible. If you enjoy these honest conversations about Disney and have the means, please consider becoming a member of the DCTC community over at patreon.com/DisneyCTC for far less than the cost of a churro. Plus, you'll gain rewards. You can find that link in this episode's description. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. This podcast is part of the DePodcast Network. Learn more about this show, plus find more quality and entertaining podcasts at DePodcastNetwork.com. That's DEPodcastNetwork.com.